Is drinking raw milk safe like RFK Jr. suggests? Can you reduce a glucose spike if you eat your food in, quote-unquote, the right order? I'm registered dietitian Abby Sharp. I host a nutrition myth-busting podcast called Bite Back with Abby Sharp, and those are just some of the questions I tackle with qualified experts on my show. There is so much food misinformation and disinformation out there, and it can feel impossible to know what's real and what's BS. On Bite Back, my goal is to help listeners create a pleasurable relationship with food, their body, and themselves, which in my opinion is the fundamental secret to good health. Listen to Bite Back wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, it's a fantastic day out there. The weekend turned out to be nice. On Father's Day yesterday was a wonderful day. Lots of sunshine, warm temperatures, and let's hope that more of the same continues throughout the month of June. Hard to believe that it's already June 16th time. Absolutely flies, as they say. And the G7, the long-awaited G7, has arrived as well. Many are watching this morning's meetings between Prime Minister Mark Carney and the U.S. President Donald Trump at the G7 summit in Alberta. The talk comes as both leaders are trying to resolve an economic spat caused by Trump's tariffs. It's also Trump's first visit to Canada since he began saying that the country should become an American state. Carney is also leading discussions today on safety issues and artificial intelligence while meeting with leaders from countries including Japan, France, and Italy. So the welcome mat is out, and the political world anyway is watching Canada as we see how Mark Carney navigates these waters. I think that he's probably pretty well equipped to do so, and I would say that he probably will enjoy the spotlight. Protests, of course, in Calgary, as you might expect this type of thing. The G7 always draws protests, but nonetheless, what can you do about Donald Trump? I mean, when all is said and done, you can't deny him access to, or you can't uninvite him or not invite him because of his bombastic and volatile and as confrontational as Trump is. He does lead of the largest economy in the world and represents the United States, of course, and our biggest trading partner. And we have to play ball with this guy. Well, some people say he shouldn't have been invited. He's a convicted felon, and look, that's true. He is a convicted felon, but still, it's like, what can you do? What can Mark Carney do? Can you shun him? I don't think that would be good politics, and I don't think that would be the best move for the country. So elbows up or elbows down, and so this is something that you can talk about when we open the phone lines in about an hour's time, if you're paying attention at all to the G7. To me, that is the interesting component to all of this, of course, is the Trump factor and what transpires as a result of with Donald Trump's presence, and how does that change things? So that is something that you can talk about. And the Edmonton Oilers are up against it, folks. When you're playing Florida, you cannot get behind. You just cannot let them get a lead, and you're playing with fire when you do. And Florida has shown that they are just that good. And they shut down Edmonton at home in Game 5 and can wrap it up at home tomorrow night. And look, a lot of heat the Leafs took and Austin Matthews took for being shut down by the Florida Panthers. But when you look at what they can do to Connor McDavid, who does not have a goal in the finals and has been a non-factor, I think that says something about how good Florida is. And I'm not making any excuses at all for the Leafs and for Austin Matthews, but look, Florida's that good, folks. They just are. They dismantled Carolina after beating the Leafs. They made and Edmonton's not out of it. They could come back and win the series. Obviously, that's why they play the game, as they say. But to me, I just looks like Florida is just destined to win again. And Brad Marchand, what can you say about Brad Marchand from Cole Harbour? I mean, just an amazing talent for sure. Again, some things that you can talk about when we open the phone lines. Is Edmonton done, or might they come back and win? So, again, we'll open the phone lines in about an hour's time. Now, it is a Monday. That means it's traditional to chat with our councillors on the hot seat, and we'll do just that. Joining me here in studio is Trish Purdy, who represents District 4, Cole Harbour, Preston, Westphal, Cherry, Brook. Trish, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Todd. Good to be here.
All right, thanks for the coffee as well. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, and Kathryn Morse joins us, District 10. Kathryn, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Todd. Appreciate being on the show.
All right, Kathryn, anything you'd like to pass along to listeners or constituents before we get into this?
Well, I'd just like to mention there will be a public hearing at City Hall later this week on Thursday for the regional plan. Sounds like dry stuff, but it's about the future of our city and how we grow, and hope people will take an interest in it.
Okay, fair enough. And Trish, how about you? What would you like to pass along? Anything going on?
Nothing that I can think of at this moment.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, I should mention, I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Ness on the other side of the glass. The control board's doing a fine job as always. I was remiss in not mentioning her as I kicked off the show. All right, give us a call, folks, if you'd like to chat with one or both the councillors, 902-405-6000. That is the way to do it. Again, 902-405-6000. Give us a call if you'd like to chat with Trish Purdy or Kathryn Morse. If you have a question or a comment, 902-405-6000. So let's revisit what was the hot topic last week, because Trish, you voted with the mayor when it comes to pressing pause on bike lanes. The motion was defeated. Why were you in support of the motion?
Because I happen to be of the mind that bike lanes that repurpose traffic lanes, existing traffic lanes, or right turn slip lanes actually do impact traffic congestion for the negative. And I mean, this is all part of a bigger policy issue of the IMP, which I've always kind of not been in favor of, because one of the policies of the IMP is to purposely make traffic congestion worse, and in the hopes of trying to get people out of their cars and into other modes of transportation. So we have not succeeded in keeping up with those other modes of transportation as options that are viable for a lot of our residents. So we are not only purposely making congestion worse, while we have in the last 5 years welcomed in about 100,000 extra residents. So more traffic. I mean, it's a recipe of very frustrating elements happening all at once, with not a lot of beneficial options, I guess, for our residents to do. So we have a lot of people stuck in traffic congestion right now and are very frustrated about that.
Okay, for those who don't know what IMP is, what does IMP stand for?
It's the Integrated Mobility Plan. Council voted this into action in 2017, and really, in principle, it's a good plan. It's to help get people using more active transportation, safer active transportation networks across our municipality, and of course, transit to beef up our transit options, like other places in the world do. Where it's easier to take public transportation and to participate in active transportation options. So
okay, so you say that it was intentionally planned to cause congestion. Who says that? Where'd you get that from?
It's in the IMP. I can't quote right now what it is, but but I mean, and I guess that's part of trying to broaden the options for folks. But I guess and also the cost of bike lanes and the cost of the AAA network. Mm-hmm. There must be, I know there is a better way, a cheaper way, a way that doesn't, that perhaps uses side streets, but that, can connect the network in a way that is not going to be on the main streets and directly impacting traffic congestion. I mean, to me, a pause is, and I mean, maybe this wasn't the best time, but what I said in one of my arguments on Tuesday is, even if this is a train wreck and it's not the best time to do it, it's a better time to do it now than next year or 5 years from now. So let's let it be the train wreck now and figure out the best way moving forward. Were
you surprised that that it didn't garner the more support than it did, the motion?
Not really.
No? Why?
Well, because this has been how council has voted the whole time I've been on council. So
there's been a lot of new members of council, though, right? So
True, yeah.
So I would think that perhaps it might be the right time to, if people were going to be swayed, that they would be, not, I guess, a result of the existing councillors, because they wouldn't have had that influence over them, perhaps. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Do you think that, I guess the question is, do you think that advocates, strong advocates for it, like Sean Cleary, I'll name him by name, has influence over some of these councillors?
I mean, I'm sure there is influence from I'm sure everyone has an element of influence, I guess. But we did receive hundreds and hundreds of emails. I probably received 250 at least emails from the advocacy groups saying that this was not a good idea and to say no, to vote no to this motion. So, I mean, that's for a new councillor. I mean, for me, even in 5 years, it's a lot.
Okay. By the way, I misspoke, and this is, I need to correct for the record right away. Connor McDavid, or rather, Brad Marchand is from Hammonds Plains, not Cole Harbour.
Okay, I almost said something, but I didn't want to do that one.
So I don't. But I apologize to everybody out there and to people in Hammonds Plains. Goodness gracious, that was a major faux pas of mine, and my brain went to sleep for a minute. I knew that, but I was thinking Sidney Crosby, of course. And all right, 902-405-6000. Kathryn, you voted in. You did not support the motion, correct?
I did not, and the mayor's motion failed 12-5, so it was a clear majority on council who voted against the motion. I think a lot on council feel that we should base our decisions on data, on evidence, on well-documented plans and approaches to things. And bike lanes don't cause congestion. The research shows that. Most of our bike lanes are not impacting any vehicle lanes in Halifax. We definitely need to do better giving people more options with transit to reduce the car congestion, the vehicle congestion. But bike lanes are another lower cost transportation alternative that gives people options, and we have to make it safe for people because they're going to be biking anyway. When we're more than halfway through our bike network, it would be wasteful and I think irresponsible not to complete it. And we're just a few years away from that.
Okay, so do you agree that the IMP stated that it was intentionally causing congestion, Kathryn?
No, I think that's... I think you get into a discussion about induced demand, which is an engineering term, and it has to do with the more lanes you build for cars, the more demand will increase for those lanes. So there is the only way to get a handle on congestion in a city that's growing quickly, as ours is. We're one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. The only way to get a handle on vehicle congestion is to improve transit, improve options for getting around, whether it's walking or cycling, and making those options safe for people.
Okay, Trish, you disagree with that, obviously.
Well, no. I mean, induced demand is one of the things that they do talk about in that, when you, she is right. The evidence does show that when you build more lanes, they will get filled by traffic. People generally take the path of least resistance, right? But the fact that a bike lane in itself may not cause congestion, but a bike lane that is from a repurposed traffic lane and right-hand slip lane actually does. And so when we are increasing our population at the rate that we have been over the last few years, and it's like now is not the time to be removing traffic lanes. We may not want to build more, and we may want to, of course, bolster up our transit options, which I think we are all in agreement that is a necessary, imperative thing to do. But now is not the time to be repurposing traffic lanes for a bike lane.
Okay, fair enough. 902-405-6000. Dennis giving us a call. Hello, Dennis.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
So a hot topic has been traffic congestion, and in my experience driving around the city, what I see is people not following the rules of the road. And for example, something would be, or something like that would be changing lanes in an intersection. So to give you an example, on Lacewood Drive, the parking lot, the intersection with the parking lot of Home Depot, when you turn left, you should be turning into the left lane, or vice versa. If you're on the opposite side of the street and you're turning right, you need to be turning into the right lane. And it's a cause and effect. And what happens is people don't go because somebody's coming from the other direction. They don't know what lane they're supposed to turn into, so they turn into the other one. So what I suggest is some signage. And to give you an example of signage, over on, I think it's Windmill Road in Dartmouth, at the bottom of the industrial park, where the businesses are there, there's signage. There's a bus lane there. And the sign says that you don't turn, if you're turning right, you don't turn into the bus lane, you turn into the next lane. So what I would suggest that council look into is maybe signage to put around the city. It's a cheap solution. We can't go around widening roads all over the place, but signage to encourage people if this is what you're supposed to do at the intersection or at a yield or at a free flow merge or whatnot.
Okay, Kathryn, what's your response to that? Or do you have a response to it?
Well, I appreciate the suggestion. Certainly can take that to staff to see if we could change that signage, particularly on Lacewood. It's pretty fast coming off the highway there. Signage is one thing we can do. Whether drivers pay attention to it and improve their driving is another thing, but I appreciate that suggestion.
Okay, Trish, any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And anything we can do to help with safety on our streets.
Dennis?
Well, I understand that, no matter how many signs you put up, there's some people that just aren't going to follow them. But I think maybe a lot of it might come down to just people not understanding.
Right.
And to keep using Bayers. And it's not just Lacewood Drive. It's all over the city. But to say in Bayers Lake, the exit coming off the 102 to go into Bayers Lake when you're 102 inbound, it's the same thing there. There's a whole lane for people to drive into and merge at the end of the lane. But nobody does. They get to the corner and they just come to a stop, and it backs traffic all the way up onto the highway and down the highway. So if there was a sign there that just simply said, continue on down, then it might help to keep traffic flowing, because it's cause and effect. If you back people up there, you back up the 102 or elsewhere in the city. If people aren't turning at an intersection when they should turn, it's cause and effect. So maybe some signage would help people to understand what they're supposed to do. And like I said, in Windmill Road in Dartmouth, there is signage. There's a sign saying exactly what you need to do. And I think that helps that particular area.
Okay, fair enough.
That's a really bad bottleneck there at Bayers Lake. Saturday morning, Bayers Lake.
Yeah.
Don't go.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Appreciate the call. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. To chat with our councillors. Kathryn Morse is on the line. Trish Purdy's here in studio. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll be back. All right, continuing with our councillors. Trish Purdy's here in studio. Kathryn Morse is on the line. Give us a call at 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Danny's called. Giving us a call. Hello, Danny.
Hi, Todd.
Hi there.
Thanks for my call.
Thanks for calling.
For the councillors, I had a question more about the not so much about bike lanes, but about scooters. If you go to bigger cities like Montreal and Toronto, you see scooters all over the place, little 50cc scooters. They provide free parking, and there's no licensing or registration for these scooters to get in downtown. I wonder if council's ever looked at anything like that as an option instead of wasting all the taxpayers' money on bike lanes.
Okay. Kathryn, you first on this one?
Well, we have a pilot project looking at scooters right now in HRM. So it's for 2 years. We're going to look at how it's working, the rates of use, how we can do things better. We're just kind of studying it right now to see what the demand is and how we can improve the service if people want to use that way of getting around.
I don't mean the electric scooters, because you've already had that with another company for the last 3 years. I'm not quite sure why you're doing another study again. But I'm talking more the 49cc gas scooters, which can easily keep up with traffic.
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand. Oh, you want parking lots for that type of scooter? Is that what you're saying?
Or being allowed to use them scooters more in the city, because I know it's a provincial issue for the licensing and registration, because Montreal you don't have to have a license or a registration to drive a 49cc scooter.
Yeah, I guess we're waiting for motor vehicles in the province, I expect, to decide on that.
Right, but have you looked at anything along them options of having free parking downtown for gas-powered scooters? The electric scooters, I know you've already done the study on that, but the company that you booted out this year that's now set up in Moncton, and you've got a new company in here doing a new study to see if it's feasible for what you've already done. But instead of wasting taxpayers' dollars, do you look at other options like these?
We're not, as far as I know, but it may be something we look at in the future.
Okay, Danny, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000, that is the way to reach us. Tim, hello.
Good day. There's work being done on Alderney Drive at King and King's Wharf, and they get the lights still in its normal standard. Now, I called 311 a month ago saying, why don't they change those lights to flashing red, or better yet, shut them off and put a couple of stop signs? It's ridiculous. You know what I mean there, Todd?
Okay, Trish.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for that. I'm just making a note here. I will call our traffic folks and just put that request in again for you. I know exactly what you mean. I am by there all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so you know what I mean.
I do.
And a lot of people are just treating it like a four-way anyway. So.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, I will call today for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Tim, thanks.
Bye-bye.
902-405-6000, that's the way to reach us. Ron, hello.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. You?
Not too bad. Just wondering if Kathryn knows, and Trish probably does know this, that the plans for the bike lane on Portland Street is to take 2 lanes of traffic out of there. So we have 2 lanes of car traffic. They plan to have 2 lanes of bus traffic and 2 lanes of bike traffic. So they don't think that they're going to cause more congestion on Portland Street. Portland Street's already congested to the point that we actually need another lane on either side of it.
Okay, Trish.
Are they still planning bike lanes down Portland Street?
Yes. Sorry, was your name Ron?
Yeah, it's Ron.
Ron.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that, Ron. So we are still waiting to see staff's recommendations on that, but that was one of the options that they had given for public participation, for folks to put their comments in, for staff to kind of assess as they're making their final recommendations to bring to council. And so, yes, that is one of the options that they had presented.
So they think people in Cole Harbour are going to jump on the bikes or the bus to go to Dartmouth Crossing to shop, or to downtown Halifax to go to dinner?
Well, Ron, this is what I'm hoping for when this does come back, and we don't know what staff are going to recommend. We don't know what the final recommendations are, but I really hope that for the public hearing, we will hear from you and folks like you that have concerns.
Yeah, because they haven't even finished the end of Caldwell Road, because I think what they're waiting for is the bike lanes to be approved for Portland Street.
Oh, no, actually, Caldwell Road is a different issue altogether. We're waiting for Nova Scotia Power to relocate some of the utility poles.
Yeah. No, okay, getting back to Portland Street. Kathryn, have you gone over and watched the traffic on Portland Street?
I'm familiar with it, but I'm not over there often.
You should go over once in a while and take a look at the traffic and just convince yourself that take away 1 lane of traffic in either direction and add 2 bike lanes.
Well, I'm not sure that we are doing that. I haven't seen the design, but I know I'm more familiar with the rebuilding of Dutch Village Road, which is going on now. And it's a very wide 2-lane street. And when it's rebuilt, it has illegal, perpendicular parking. It should be parallel parking. So when the street is rebuilt, it's going to be more of a standard size. and the extra space will be used for a sidewalk and a bike lane. So we're rebuilding streets and modernizing them. We're keeping the same number of lanes and finding space for other features for active transportation. So it is possible to to redo a street, maintain the same number of lanes, and find more space for pedestrians and cyclists.
Well, I've been driving up and down that street for pretty near 40 years, and I don't know whether you're going to get the extra space for bike lanes and keep the crosswalks or the sidewalks,
Okay, Ron, appreciate the call. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. To chat with our councillors, again, 902-405-6000. We'll be back. All right, chatting with our councillors, taking your calls as well. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Kathryn Morse is on the line. Trish Purdy's here in studio. Again, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Chris, hello.
Good morning, people. How are you doing?
We're well.
Good. I didn't catch your first few minutes of the show, Todd. So, which did both you councillors vote yes or no for Andy Fillmore?
Trish supported it, and Kathryn did not.
Okay. First of all, Trish, thank you very much. As a taxpayer, I commend you for at least having the backbone and spine to stand up for us and be willing to show some proper fiscal management. Kathryn, to you should be ashamed of yourself.
I'm not.
You people, oh, I'm sure you're not. Neither is Cleary and the other bunch. Look, you guys were elected by us, the taxpayers. We, the taxpayers, that's our money. This city is ours. It's not your personal playground. That money is not yours to be to suit your own agenda and discretion. Did you, Kathryn, not think that to pause those bike lanes, just to relook at the financial aspects, given the hard times we're going through and the gross overruns on the bike lanes, didn't you at all consider that might be a prudent thing to do?
I didn't think that it was the time, because we had already approved this program in our capital budget and in our regular operating budget. It was already discussed at that time. That's when we make budget decisions and spending decisions, when we can have a thorough debate with our reports in front of us, with staff there, and we can talk about the whole program. I don't know why it didn't come up at that time. That would have been more appropriate. But what I think was unfair about it was we're talking about an overall program that we're implementing a few years at a time. It does not cost that amount of money every year. This was to complete the network over a number of years. So it just was not, the debate was not framed appropriately, and we were scapegoating cyclists. Which was very unfair. And maybe unsafe in some cases, to be making them scapegoats in the way that it was framed.
Fine. Yeah. Okay. Well, you didn't answer my question. Being fair to the taxpayer, and don't excuse me just a second, please.
Chris, dial it back a little bit, okay? Let's just try and have a good conversation.
You may not be aware that one of the bike lanes that we were discussing was about to be tendered the next day. If you cancel a contract the day before it's supposed to be tendered, it puts at risk many other contracts, and future bids will go up in price to the risk premium of it, so it is changing their mind at the last minute. So this is not the way to do business on contracts, and this is not the way we should be operating. It puts up prices for everything.
Yeah, you can spin it the way you want. I don't buy any of it. It would have been fiscally responsible to do it, given the fact, and if now is not the right time, given our financial situation in the city, and the fact, and the reason it didn't come up at budget time, because you guys didn't know it was 400% over budget. You didn't know that, so you couldn't debate something you didn't know. But I mean, when is a better time, Kathryn? Seriously. This is a very serious crisis we're going through financially with everything that's going on and these constant and continual increases in our property taxes and in many cases lackluster services for our money. I mean, when is a better time than now to look at our fiscal restraint in the city?
I don't agree with the way that it was framed and the way that you're framing it. It's not that simple.
Okay.
Well, I think it's that.
Well, Trish, you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, Trish, please.
To Kathryn's point, it is very complex, and the folks, some of my colleagues that did vote against it, this was the main reason why, because of the timing and, of course, the tender that was closing the next day. That was on Brunswick Street. So yes, there are. I mean, I guess I looked at it. There's risks no matter what we do or which way this goes. There are risks. There are going to be financial, consequences, I guess if that's the right word, whichever way this goes. But like I said, if this is a train wreck because it is the wrong time and it's not like, everything is wrong, but the intention is in my opinion, right to take a sober second look at how this, first of all, what infrastructure we're choosing to use and the cost, then let it be a train wreck now and not next year or 5 years from now.
Could you not have allowed the contract that was coming up on the next day or whatever, could you not have allowed that one to proceed and looked at the future ones with a new pair of glasses?
Okay, that's a fair question.
I was under so I was under the impression that this motion was only going to impact those projects that had not gone out to tender yet, that had not proceeded in any way.
Kathryn, what's your response to that? Is that the case?
The one that was going out to tender the next day was put to a vote, and it was allowed to go ahead. So that one did go out to tender, as far as I know. There was another vote on a second bike lane on Morris Street, and that was put on hold.
Okay.
Right. So effectively, the one that was going out the next day, that was allowed. But the future ones, you still could have, the ones down the road, you still could have paused them for a second look at it, could you not?
We did pause one of them, yes.
No, all of them. Not one of them, all of them. If you can pause one, you can pause all. And you let the current one, let's call it the current one, the one going out the next day, you allowed that to go through. I see that. I get what you're saying there. But the future ones.
Look, we have a plan to complete the bike network. It's been studied and worked on for a number of years. Our staff has put a lot of time and effort into it. Our projects are integrated with bike lanes, with road work that's already happening. Everything that we do in a road space is integrated with many different layers of work and expertise. And we voted to keep going with that plan and keep connecting our bike network to make it safer and make it more usable for more people.
Okay, Chris. I'm gonna let you go, Chris, because
it always sounds as though it's the hell with the taxpayer. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Obviously, they're going to disagree on that one. Robin, hello.
Hello, Todd. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
This is a question for Kathryn Morse. Ms. Morse, I wanted to thank you for the routine HRM updates in social media, our Facebook page, Friends of Fairview.
Thank you.
My question is, often when these are posted, there are a lot of questions that come out of it. My question to you is, why is it that you don't go back in and attempt to answer any of those questions? I'm going to hang up and let you answer that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Okay, thanks for the question. Yeah, I spend 4 to 8 hours pulling my post together, depending on how long it is or how detailed it is. And I feel like that's about as much time as I can afford on social media each week because I have many other time commitments as well. We have a lot of meetings to attend and prepare for every week. And so if I started to get into answering all the questions that come up with every Facebook post, it would then add another day or half a day to it. I do include my phone number and my email in every post. And so if people have questions, please email me or call me about them. I find Facebook is not the best way to answer detailed questions for people. So that's the reason I do it. It's about getting the word out to people. And if you have questions that you need to talk to me about, please get in touch through email or phone.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Ralph, hello.
Hi. I have a question. First question. Does HRM coordinate with the province on the roads?
On roads?
On the roads.
Are you talking about provincial roads within the municipality?
Well, yeah, okay. I'm talking about the 107 being twinned, okay, and what they're doing, they're twinning the 107 so that everybody can get to the stoplight at Main Street and then sit there even longer. It's already a problem. They already have all the property bought to bypass Main Street from East Preston into where Conrad's is, somewhere in there. It's been on the books for years. Why not open that up? Don't waste money on twinning a road that isn't going anywhere when you have a road that will take all the congestion off of Main Street. It will flow traffic through to the highways if people are going out of town. And you know, I don't understand the reasoning there.
Okay, Trish?
Well, I suggest you contact the MLA for the area for that one, because both of those projects are provincial and they would have all of the authority and the jurisdiction over those two things.
Well, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you have coordination with the province, that if you've got a problem on Main Street, which is a major traffic problem, and there's a bypass plan, can you not coordinate with them to maybe start that project rather than twin the highway? Yes, and that
I don't think there is I don't think that happens right now. However, there is Link Nova Scotia is going to be presenting a report. I mean, they have done the last few years, the regional transportation plan for HRM and about an hour radius outside of HRM coming into the city. So I think in the future we're going to see more coordination between the province and the municipality in those areas, because I think that's might have been what might have been lacking in the past. So I think we will be seeing more coordination moving forward.
But it is true that our staff, our public works staff, and our the people who handle and manage the roads in HRM do meet on a fairly regular basis with their counterparts at the province. We haven't seen the results of that report, as Councillor Purdy mentioned, and we're looking forward to seeing the regional transportation plan, because it would help council do better planning for our roads if we knew what the overall regional plan is.
It's funny. You've been working in this province since HRM was inducted, and they still haven't got the smarts to get together, and now you're thinking about it. It's like everything else. Our things
staff,
at the last minute.
HRM staff is working with provincial public works staff on roads and major highway interchanges and projects that overlap.
Okay. Well, fine. But there's a problem right there that nobody's addressing. Why waste the money on twinning a highway which isn't going to have any productive effect, and put the other one in so that you can clear traffic? Or are we still trying to slow things up there as well? No, this is a common problem, and it's everybody's running the system to suit their means, not what's practical. Same as the hold. The hold should have only been for a few months, relook, rethink, and then keep on going. Not hold it for 2 or 3 years. I don't think that's what the mayor intended. It was a hold for a short period of time to realign things and think about what's wrong now with the picture. And that's exactly what he wanted to do. And it had nothing to do with existing contracts or just coming up. But future? Do we realign certain routes to side streets? I mean, Barrington Street, Hollis Street, Lower Water Street are an absolute nightmare now because of everything that you've done. And the costs have so overrun. It was supposed to be $20 million. How did you manage to get another $80 million from anybody to do this? You didn't get the public approval. You guys just go up and do it whatever way you want, and you can override the mayor. There's something wrong with this system. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Ralph, thanks for the call. Okay, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with the councillors when we come back. All right, our councillors on the hot seat. Kathryn Morse is on the line. Trish Purdy's here in studio taking your calls, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Dawn, hello. Hi, Dawn.
Hi.
Go ahead, Dawn. Turn your radio off, please, in the background.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just phoning regarding the section of Herring Cove Road from 500 block out to the old Lumber Mart section to get a bike lane put down there. There's no sidewalks in that area. There's some duplexes built along there now, and they park right out to the white line. So anybody walking's got to go around to the main road. And the side of the road was paved, or the right side, but it was dug up a number of years ago to put fiber optic cable down that came across the ocean. And seniors could use that bike lane with their scooters to get into the mall, but right now they can't because they're not allowed on the main road. Also, there's no sidewalks, so it's dangerous for people walking. And there's a lot of cyclists during the summer, groups of them that cycle all the way out to Sambro. And as well, they've got to stay on the main section of the road in that area. And coming up, you've got major construction that starts at the old Lumber Mart in behind Parkmore, down the past Parkmore to where the 9-hole golf course, that's now being developed. And then when you get to the other side, you get down to Green Acres subdivision. There's about 40 acres of land that's being readied right now by two major contractors to build a few thousand homes up in back there.
Okay, Don. So you state the case well for a bike lane in Herring Cove Road. So let's get reaction from the councillors. Kathryn, what's your response to that?
Yeah, it sounds like it would be the ideal location for a multi-use path, one of those asphalt paths that could be used by pedestrians and seniors on scooters and cyclists. Right. I can certainly mention this to Councillor Cuddle. That's her area, and I think there could be a lot of recreation benefits for infrastructure like that. But we need so many pieces of active transportation infrastructure across HRM, and we do have budget restraints to think about. So anyway, I will mention that to your councillor. Thank you for suggesting it. And I just wanted to mention that if people have specific areas where they feel that they need a sidewalk or multi-use path or something like that, it can be helpful if you call or email 311 with the suggestion, because then it goes out to all the HRM staff involved as they're compiling a list of capital projects for the years ahead.
Okay, Mike, hello.
Hey guys, I got a couple quick questions about bike lanes. One is, where is this extra $80 million going to come from? Are we just going to get more taxes? Like, do you guys have a plan to pay for this? Because it ballooned from 20 million to 100 million. And honestly, no one who seemed to care were a handful of councillors and the mayor, because it's still going through. So the other thing is, if we're so concerned about getting people safely on bicycles, we just put a highway through that took 5 years to go, a connector to Burnside. Why did no one from the city join up with the province and say, hey, can we put a bike lane on that? Because they just put a highway from Aerotech to Wellington, and that was a major trail for the ATV Association, and that fans went to the province and said, is there anything we can do to have a trail made? They put a bridge, a trail, and multi-use trail in. But no one from the city could think to do that on this crazy bicycle agenda, on this new number 7 extension.
Okay, so on the budget item, let's ask Kathryn, where's the extra money coming from? That's a good question.
Well, this will be going through our capital planning and our capital budget in December and January next year. Some of the money, we have received federal support for some of our bike infrastructure as part of federal programs.
Not for the overage, though, Kathryn.
That's gone, though, is it not?
Yeah.
So, like, that was the $20 million. That's gone out the window. It's now going to cost HRM $80 million more dollars. As of right now, we know how the price has been going crazy over the last 5 years. So that $80 million could become $90 million or $100 million by the time these projects are done.
Look, all our infrastructure costs are going up. Everything is going up. All roads, bridges, playgrounds, anything we build, the prices have gone up. So this is something we have to work out through the budget process and maybe make some choices then about what things to prioritize and what things to delay. But
we just had an opportunity to do that. The mayor wanted to put a pause to find out where the money's going to come from and the congestion that's going to cause, and how can we fix this and make it better. But you guys don't care. You guys, we're going away. We're through with it. We don't care what it costs. We don't care about the congestion that everyone's outraged about it. We're doing it.
Sorry. We try to make these decisions with the whole context of the priorities in front of us so that we're not making an isolated choice. We try to look at all of the options, all of the needs. We look at across the municipality what's coming up. It's a big exercise. We don't look at one thing at a time in isolation from the other things.
But you don't think $80 million deserves its own one thing?
Yeah, well, we will be looking at it.
Or paving.
We will be looking at it. I know we will be looking at it through the budget process, yes.
Okay, and what about the new highway to Burnside? Why did no one from HRM think maybe that's a great spot?
I can answer that for you.
Okay, Trish wants to weigh in on this.
Councillor Hensby just texted me and he said there will be a bike lane on the Burnside connector. The base for it has been built. It will be a separated pathway, so it is on the way.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And that's going from
to
all
Sackville,
the way through from Sackville?
That's right.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, Mike, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming into the studio, Trish. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Kathryn, thanks for doing it. I appreciate it as well.
Thank you.
All right, take care. That's Trish Purdy. That's Kathryn Morse. And now we get some time for you. What is on your mind? The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Perhaps you might want to respond or react to what you just heard with our councillors still talking about bike lanes. And look, folks, I've said this before, and I'll repeat myself. I think that there are members of council that it wouldn't matter what the price tag would be. They would say it must be done, and you must not backtrack, or you must forge ahead. I really believe that. I think that there's no number that some councillors would not balk at. And that's just my take on it. And I share and understand people's frustration over this. I truly do. I supported the mayor's motion. Not that I voted, but fundamentally I supported the mayor's motion. and think that pressing pause would be a good thing. That's not to say that that it would be the end of the bike lane. Certainly not. And that was never the intent. The intent was to have a revisit, to look at what's going ahead, what the plans are, how might the plans be improved, and the cost, I think, needs to be at some point analyzed. To a few callers' comments, 80 million, and that number is likely going to go up. We know that. And at some point, is it prohibitive? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, I don't vote. I only have an opinion, just like you. So what's your take on that, or anything else you have in your mind? Again, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. You can continue to talk with that if you like that issue, or you can get into whatever else you'd like to discuss on the show. Again, 902-405-6000. Something that perhaps some of you might want to weigh in on is the G7 happening in Alberta, of course. And part of the big story, of course, is Donald Trump, who is in Canada for the first time in a number of years. And certainly since the first time since he was talking about Canada being the 51st state. And Mark Carney, of course, is rolled out the welcome mat to him as a member of the G7. And some suggested that he should not have been invited. I would say that you don't have a choice, folks. Regardless of what Trump has said and done, and whatever you think of his policies, or his personal comments, or his slights, it doesn't. You can't not invite him. You have to play ball with him because he is the leader of this country, of the United States, of course, which is the biggest economy in the world, which we are a neighbor to the north of course. And we're desperately trying to hammer out a trade deal with the United States. It's imperative that we get this done, so diplomacy is necessary, folks. Again, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. And is that to Sam Austin who wants to get in on the fun? All right, Sam Austin's giving us a call. Councillor Sam Austin in Dartmouth. Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. So you felt inspired to give us a call. What's going on?
I did. I caught half the show, very spirited hour. I wanted to just offer, because it came up there at the very end of the show about Burnside and active transportation. And we are doing active transportation into the next phase of Burnside, the expansion there. But we actually, when it came forward about whether or not we should build an AT trail alongside the highway, council turned that down. We're more interested in Magazine Hill because Magazine Hill is a direct connection. It's a shorter distance between the areas that are going to be that will drive cycling demand. So we'd actually, when the province offered, well, do you want to contribute a bunch of money to build AT alongside the highway? It was turned down due to cost when Magazine Hill is a much better option. So unless something has changed and the province is doing it, the municipality is not doing a bike route alongside the new 107.
Okay, Sam, is there a number that you would look at and you would say that that's prohibitive when it comes to cost, or what are your thoughts on the cost overrun?
Just on the overall project?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like everything we do, right now, everything we're spending money on is costing way more. The Windsor Street Exchange ballooned up to $150 million. Eastern Shore Lifestyle Center came in, I think it was $20 million more. Cost overruns are rampant right now, and it's not just overruns. One of the challenges with the bike network is a lot of the network, when it was proposed, we didn't have it designed yet. And as we're going through, we're coming into all sorts of other improvements that are happening alongside. So it's not just like bikes. It's like, well, the Brunswick tender that's going out, we're putting trees into the street. We're making some pedestrian plazas. We're improving the sidewalks. So the costs are up because of those two factors. You know, we consider these things as part of our capital budgeting, right? You sit down every year, go over what the priorities are, and then make decisions accordingly. $70 million is a lot more than we originally thought. It's also equivalent to 1 year's worth of the paving budget. It's still half the Windsor Street Exchange, and it's spread out over multiple years. So I don't think it's an unreasonable sum. It is still a valid question. Okay, where does that money come from, and what might we have to do without if we're going to do that one? So I think those are all still good discussions for council to have.
Okay, so I have you on the line. I'll ask you a couple more questions regarding this. There's a thought out there from some that the cycling lobby, if we want to use that term, has a disproportionate amount of influence over council. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I would disagree with that. I mean, I think generally when people complain about disproportionate influence, it's usually when, some decision didn't go their way. There is a cycling lobby in terms of the Halifax Cycling Coalition. But, my inbox, and I can say that most of my colleagues, I think it was the same thing, lots of heartfelt responses from residents in my district who want to use active transportation or are using active transportation and don't feel safe doing it because we haven't provided the appropriate infrastructure. So, is heartfelt notes from your residents a lobby? I don't know. I think it's good feedback.
Okay, Sam, appreciate the call and thanks for the clarity on the topic. Thank you.
I don't normally ring in for clarity, but it was like, oh goodness, that's not what the situation is. So I wanted to make sure that was on there.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. There you go, folks. David, hello.
Hi, Todd. Yeah, I just want to comment on bike lanes and maybe offer a suggestion for better bike lanes. A number of years ago, I wrote a paper on repurposing side streets for bike lanes, and I used Isville, Fuller Terrace, Macra as an example. Those roads together basically go all the way from the NSCC on Lead Street down to the Citadel. So what you could do is just sort of block off 3 out of 4 entrances to those streets, and then along those streets also install sort of traffic calming measures, and in that way you could preserve local access, but you'd essentially create a restricted access bike lane that would primarily be intended for those. And it's sort of, I would say it'd be much cheaper, but it would also be better because there's almost no cars on those roads at all. So, I mean, you wouldn't have those interactions. But, I mean, as a biker, you're respirating heavily, you're exercising, and you're right next to, on Roby or whatever the main streets are with bike lanes, all these cars spewing out exhaust, and you're breathing that down deep, and it's just not very nice. So, yeah, I do definitely think there are better ways we could do it. And I mean, personally, I've also had an experience with bike lanes along Almond Street. It kind of resulted in the destruction of our town Christmas tree and our community garden. And when that sort of went on, I just sort of wanted to raise the concern, like, hey, could we just tweak this project? I get the need for bike lanes and stuff, but just a little bit of a realignment would have sort of eliminated all those problems. But I couldn't reach any of the councillors, couldn't reach the mayor, couldn't reach the project manager involved. We only found out about this like 2 or 3 days before because the contractor left a spray painted sign in the community garden saying like, hey, heads up, this is what's coming. But it was really funny because as soon as the media got involved, the project manager showed up and was like, oh, sorry, bud. Yeah, I didn't have your phone number. Couldn't get a hold of you. No way of reaching you. And it's like, really, bud? I called you like 3 or 4 times, left messages, texted you, all this stuff. I'm pretty sure in between you could have got the phone number right and there'd be no problem there. So it's just sort of, I don't know, maybe a little bit more flexibility, nimbleness, responsiveness, willing to listen to people could go a long way just to make this whole process much smoother. But just kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for the call as always, Dave. Take care.
Right on. Thank you.
Okay, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Hello, Bill.
How you doing, Todd?
Doing well, you?
Not too bad. You're going to be down to the garden party on Wednesday?
Well, I don't know about the garden party. Tell me about it.
Well, the federal, the lieutenant governor.
Okay, I wasn't planning. Was not planning on it, to be honest with you.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know. Sometimes it's advertised more than others, but lately it was kind of quiet. But it's Wednesday at 2:00, Government House. You want to be there? Put your best suit on. See all the gang. Anyway, that's the starter. I got a call yesterday morning. I can't believe it. A friend of mine, Donnie Gallant. They had the big annual fundraiser there for the Dartmouth General Hospital down in the Passage. And I forgot all about it. Normally I'd go. But they had some pretty interesting stuff going on there. All the big boys were there. The governor, all works. Anyway, somehow or another, it ended up that his hat come up for auction. $28,000 for his cowboy hat. Two guys bid it out. Can you imagine?
No, I can't. But if you get the money, then why not, eh?
Well, it went to the good cause.
There you go.
What I called about actually is the Nova Scotia Power. I don't think they should be allowed to dig into the credit thing as much as they are and put you on the spot and somebody else get in there and get the information. They don't need a lot of that stuff for where your credit is and this and that and so on. If they hook you up and you don't pay your bill, they cut you off. You don't have the power, so it's pretty darn simple. Other than that, that's a lot of work and a lot of time and then putting people at risk. What do you think of that?
Yeah, look, how much information, to me, it's why did they hold on to the information? Why did they hold on to social insurance numbers and all this personal information, which is not best practice? So you're absolutely right, Bill. And you're, to your point, if somebody doesn't pay their bill, then cut their power off, right? I get that. So it's
right.
Yeah. No, I get it. Bill, to me, the big question is why were they holding on to all this data in the first place? That's the big question.
That's right. The other thing, there's here's your latest one, $7 billion they're going to play around with the QE2. I foresee what's going on here. It looks to me like the old VG, they want to get that out of the way. That's a beautiful big parking lot, big area, just great for the big developers. So pull all this stuff and get it out of there, put it up at the QE2, spend a big pile of money. $7 billion.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
And that number's going to go up. You know that for sure, right, Bill? That number's going to do nothing but go up.
Just a quickie, the bike lanes, I'm certainly, I drove in this city for 80 years and certainly never had a problem with the bikes being tied in with the cars. We got a lot more priority and things to do rather than bike lanes, a heck of a lot more than spending all these billions of dollars. Anyway, that's my take for the day.
Okay, Bill. Thanks for the call as always. Take care.
See you down at the big band.
Okay, pal. Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continue with your calls. 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Carlos, hello. Hi, Carlos. Put Carlos on hold and go back to him. 902-405-6000. Scott, hello.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm well, you?
Good, Todd.
Great.
I'm just frustrated with the bike thing, the bike lanes, and the cost of the bike lanes. And then you hear councillors come on and say the priority for the bike lanes. I live in Ketch Harbour. It's on the Sambro Loop, and I'm sure you're familiar with that because I think you live out this way.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
What about the water? The worst water in the city is around the Sambro Loop, and I'm not even going to talk about Harrodsfield.
Mm.
Right? And that's not a priority? It's not a priority to bring water through our community? This is ridiculous. Yeah, spend $80, $90 million on bike lanes. I'm not begrudging people having bike lanes. I don't like the design. That's okay. I'm not a designer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the way they're done. But that's okay. But the priority should be water. I don't care about sewer.
Mm-hmm.
We need water. We need water all around the loop because it's the worst scenario you've ever seen. And we pay taxes, and we get nothing.
Well, I guess that the councillors would say that Halifax water is separate from what the taxpayers pay for because they're their own entity. What would your response be to that?
We pay taxes, just like everybody else.
Yeah,
and the only service I get is garbage.
Right.
That's all I get. Well, I mean, I've obviously, if you had to call the police or fire department, well, fire department's going to be a truck with water in it.
Mm-hmm.
You got no fire hydrants, so the place will burn down before they ever get there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but truly, I'm 4 kilometers away from water.
Yeah.
On Catch Harbor Road.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't extend the water and start bringing water out this way. This is ridiculous. And my answer to my counselor was, well, if we bring water out there, it'll be populated. Okay, well, I'm sorry. We need water.
So you're on a well, obviously, right now, Scott. Is that correct?
Everybody is.
Yeah. And you would like Halifax water to extend out to there?
Absolutely. I don't care about sewer.
Yeah.
Septic tanks we can deal with. I spend thousands and thousands of dollars on water, and you still can't get it
Mm-hmm.
to the proper way.
What do you mean you spend thousands? You mean on your well system? Is that what you mean?
Yes, because there's so much iron, there's so much manganese, there's all kinds of stuff in our waters.
Yeah.
And it's right around the loop.
Yeah.
And then you get into heritage filter, that's a whole other issue. I don't even want to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not him. But really, they can't run a pipeline out and start bringing people together and get fresh water.
Yeah.
Honestly, I understand. I understand they want bike lanes. I get it. But, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, it's getting to the point where I'm going, what's the priority, water or a bike lane?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all. That's all I'm
Okay,
saying,
Scott.
Todd.
I appreciate the call, pal. Take care.
Thank you, man.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Carlos, hello.
Hello. Hi, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm well, you?
Good. Yes, 100% Cycling Coalition is one of the most influential lobby groups here in Halifax. When it comes to talk about influential lobby groups, you often think like big groups like NRA or something like, or mining, but Cycling Coalition have a lot of influence, not because of the amount of money or anything like this, but because 60% of us do not show up during the municipal election. That means that 40% only shows up. And that's what we saw. That can be just enough to get people elected or certainly reelected. And that's what we saw in this motion, a minority won, because 60% of us, we call in radio shows, we write on social media, but when it comes to election, we do not show up. So a group like Cycling Coalition can have a lot of influence. And if you decide to run for the councillor, they will send a questionnaire saying, is bike lane a top priority for your platform? If you say no, oh my buddy, you lost already 1,000 votes right there on the dot. So they are very influential without a single doubt. That's my view.
Okay, Carlos. Why do you say that? Why do you think that people don't show up to vote? Then why do you think that is?
Well, that's that's the key question, right? Or people seems to be caring more about what happened with Trump, and that's it, without caring how, if you don't show up, 40% will show up, and they will shape your city. And that's exactly what's happening. A minority is shaping your city because you don't show up, because 60% of us do not show up. If you don't show up, well, there you go. Have some bike lanes and stuff. All of that. This mayor motion, it wasn't against, it was a pause to investigate, to do research if bike lanes could or not create excessive traffic. So it was a motion to create evidence, and they vote against that. They vote against creating research. Wow, that was something. They could let it go, and if it proves that's not the case, then you have an even bigger argument to create bike lanes. But no, they said no, none of that, none of creating research, none of create evidence. We're just gonna plow it through it and put it bike lane, whatever it was planned. And that was really something that really showed the influence of Cycling Coalition. Basically saying if you vote in favor of this, well, next election, so sorry, you're not on, our guy. And by the way, how many times I've seen Sean Cleary fill up a tank of his beautiful SUV? Many times. It's like you get that but if you have the support of the cycling coalition, you easily can get elected.
Okay, okay, Carlos. Appreciate the call. Thanks, pal.
Thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. We, in response to our councillors, Trish, Purdy, and Kathryn Morse, who took calls, and a number of calls, I'd say the majority of calls, where people were asking about or commenting, I should say, on the fact that the mayor's motion to press pause on bike lanes did not pass about a week ago or so now. And only 5 councillors, including the mayor, I believe, supported the motion. Obviously, the mayor supported his own motion. But Kathryn Morse was one who opposed the motion and vehemently feels as though bike lanes do not cause congestion and that it's important to get this done, in particular because half the network is already done. Trish Purdy, conversely, from Cole Harbour, of course, supported the motion, and she had the opposite opinion. And she said that the bike lanes definitely cause congestion and went so far as to suggest that that was intentional to get people out of cars. And a lot of people still want to talk about this. So what are your feelings on this, folks? Do you have any comments on this? Or whatever else you've got in your mind? The way to reach us, of course, is 902-405-6000. Jim's giving us a call. Hello, Jim.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Great. I didn't mean to ask you how you were because I know how you are. But anyway, I want to talk about the bus fire that happened. I think it was Thursday in Hammond's Plains.
Yeah, I read that this morning. I saw that story this morning.
Yeah, I saw it on Friday. I drive a school bus, and I don't know any of the particulars on this particular incident other than what I saw on the news on Friday.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see a motion going forward to have that bus driver as a hero because he got all those children off that big bus. I know those buses hold about 45, 50 kids. I don't know how many were on his bus.
Yeah.
But, the bus blew up. Not only was it caught on fire, I heard it caught on fire in the front. He saw a fire, and then he started evacuating the kids. Good job he did. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, your bus is on fire. You got to get the kids off the bus. But he got them all off safely. Nobody was hurt. And he got them all off. I saw it on TV. The bus blew up. And holy smoke, that was quite a fire. That was quite an incident. And I say him. It could have been a woman. I don't know anything about the particulars. Mm-hmm. But I like to see somebody, maybe one of those parents of the children, put his name forward to city council and get him the Order of Canada or something, or a hero, some sort of hero worship, because it seems to me he saved a bunch of lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely about 100% correct, Jim. He definitely did his job well.
Yeah, I think maybe if one of the parents are listening and maybe they can, I know I had an incident similar to that, and I don't want to get into that, but you go to your counselor, and your counselor gives a little ceremony at City Hall, and then if it warranted, you can go up to Ottawa and get some sort of accommodation from the Governor General. So I don't know how far anyone wants to take it, but I think that person, whoever's driving the bus, was a hero in our community, and I at least like to get it on the radio and say thank you very much, him or her.
Okay, Jim, thanks for the call. And well said. I agree with you 100%. Thanks for the call, pal.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, 902-405-6000. Kay, hello.
Oh, yes. Hi, Todd.
Hi there.
I'm calling because of obviously the bike issues are a contentious issue.
Yeah.
And I do feel quite strongly about it. I did contact my counselor because although I do think that they are very, very important, I don't think that they should be a top priority at the moment. We communicated back and forth via email. The one thing that I found really frustrating was that she didn't really acknowledge the kind of my points, but she also boldly lied and said that there were no bike lanes in Halifax that were created by taking up lanes, traffic lanes. And if you go downtown, I can name off at least 3 streets without, and I'm terrible at my street names, where bike lanes have indeed taken over car lanes. So I'm happy to have discussions, and I realize that this isn't a popular opinion to have put a pause on bike lanes. But I would like our councillors to actually be honest with us and acknowledge the fact that the congestion is also a result of poor planning in the city, bike lanes, and the like. So, anyway, just wanted to say
I
that,
would say this, Kay. I would say
infuriating.
that, Kay. I would say that some councillors believe that that's not the case. That they you say they need to be honest. I think that Kathryn Morse truly believes that they do not cause congestion.
Yes, but she also has quoted evidence-based practices that take place, which is how they form their decisions. Anyone who has taken a grade 12 statistics class would realize that a lot of the studies that have been done are not have not been done on a very high level, and they are biased. So again, regardless, I do think bicycle lanes are important, but are they the top priority? No. I really don't think that was a priority, and I think it would have been nice for the councillors to have acknowledged that we live in Nova Scotia. You can't cycle from various parts of the city in the middle of winter, and let's face it, our winters are cold.
Mm. Yeah, I get what
Anyway,
you're Kay, listen, I get what you're saying, and I support the motion fundamentally. But again, I still defer back to, I do believe that there are members of council that are ideologically driven on this and believe in the fibers of their being that they're right.
Yeah, I suppose when I look at things, I've got a science background, so it's talking about religion and science. I will always go on the science side of things. Show me the statistics. Yeah. Show me the proof. Show me the evidence.
Yeah.
And when it comes to bike lanes, yes, you may want bike lanes all you want, but if that is in fact the case, that I could be wrong with it. I'm hoping that my councillors know more than I do with regards to that. But I feel their ideological views do not necessarily represent the views of their constituents. They are not necessarily based in fact.
Do you think that there is a disproportionate amount of influence by the cycling community when it comes to this whole issue?
I do. Personally, Again, I do. In the same way that, the NRA has a lot more views they've got a significant voice in the United States, and it's a small organization. The smaller groups tend to have the loudest voices because they care. And like one of your callers said, people don't go out, they don't vote. They like to moan and complain, and obviously I felt strongly enough to call in my first time because this is something I feel strongly about. I think more so that, she lied to me. And that's the bit that I find the most irritating.
Well, again, a lie to me is having knowledge and knowing that the knowledge is true and misrepresenting that knowledge. And I'm not sure that that's the case with these councillors. Maybe some, but I think that some, back to, I'm being repetitive here, I know that, and I don't mean to be argumentative, but I do believe that it's not a lie if they think what they're saying is true.
Well, yes, but do not say that bicycle lanes have not replaced car lanes in downtown Halifax. When you look at Morris Street, Upper Water Street, the end of Gottingen, there are, and the building is in that area. So if you walk around downtown, you can see where bicycle lanes have taken over car lanes. So that was just one little thing that she mentioned to me, and I thought, you know what, I'm now not going to really believe anything else that you say because that is a blatant lie.
Okay, appreciate your time. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it. Call again.
All right. Take care.
All right, take
Bye.
care. 902-405-6000. Doug, hello.
Good morning, sir.
Hi there.
This may sound repetitive, but I called in a while ago about the bike lanes, and I'm in favor of bike lanes. But there's always a but. There's other ways to put bike lanes in that would be much safer and also allow for expansion of the bike lanes without interfering with traffic. And, I've traveled around the world a bit, and when I was in Tel Aviv a couple of years ago, they had bike lanes everywhere. But the bike lanes were adjacent to the sidewalks. And they made room next to the sidewalk for bike lanes, and it was written right on the bike lanes: "Do not walk here. This is a bike lane." And with regard to HRM or Halifax, Dartmouth, or whatever, obviously, I really do believe we're going to get an increase in bicycle use, particularly in the summer and early spring and late fall. So those bike lanes are going to get more and more congested as well, I believe. And also, every time I come to Halifax, I see cranes in the air. So Halifax is growing probably exponentially in the last 5 or 6 years. So what the bike lanes are doing by using traffic lanes is preventing the expansion of traffic lanes as the city grows. And I really think there should be alternate routes that bike lanes could use going perhaps down side streets, which would do two things. Number one, it would stop so much traffic from going down those lanes because they know that bicycles are there. And bike lanes do interfere with traffic regardless. And also, it would allow for the expansion of traffic routes as the city grows. And I suggested a couple of weeks ago that I think the city council should take a pause and have a look at better alternatives, which will allow the expansion of traffic lanes as well as bike lanes. So that's just my piece on it. And, we have a beautiful city. Mm-hmm. We have beautiful cities here, Halifax and Dartmouth. And it's going to expand. Growth is certainly evident. Mm-hmm. So I think rather than congest traffic lanes and bike lanes, the alternative perhaps would be to stop, have a look, and see if there is other alternate solutions, such as what I've seen in Tel Aviv. Anyway, that's my say on that. And again, I'm in favor of them, but we need to stop and rethink what would be the best long-term alternative for both traffic, vehicle traffic, mm-hmm. and bike lane traffic.
Okay, Doug, appreciate your comments. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. David, hello.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm well, you?
Good, sir. I won't keep you on the phone much. I just want to read you this here. I don't know if you've seen it, Todd, but it's pretty. You've probably seen it in the newsroom. But anyways, I'm just going to read you this. It's about the traffic in Halifax. And the thing about it is that the traffic in Halifax is on your news. I listen to your radio show all day working in the truck and so on and so forth. And, I love the information, especially the traffic in the morning. I'm going to read you something here. This just posted up. It would not come to your surprise that Vancouver and Toronto take the two top spots in the worst traffic in Canada. But the third city on the podium is a bit more shocking. Halifax Regional Municipality comes in just behind Toronto, taking the bronze medal in the competition. It probably was not hoping to win.
Yeah, I've heard that. We've talked about that story for sure, and I was shocked to hear it, actually, and to read that.
It's unbelievable that we're third in the country. And I know everyone says, "Oh, size, so on and so forth." But listen to your councils this morning. I just don't know if who we voted in has the answers to what's going on. Like, when I go to work in the morning, I listen to your radio station, and I think you hear it yourself too. Traffic's lined up on the on the Bedford Highway to Hammers Plains Road. Traffic's lined up on the Bay High all the way back to Bayers Lake. Traffic's lined up here and there. It's a nightmare. And I think what's going on is we're growing too fast. And I talked about this before, and I think all these buildings going up, all this immigration we're taking in, yeah, we like to grow. Yeah, we need more people. Yeah, welcome people into here. But it's exploding too fast, Todd. We don't have the infrastructure. When you look at the peninsula of Halifax, there's 3 ways in. You're either going to go across the bridge, you're going to come around the Armdale Rotary, or you're going to come in on a boat.
Yeah.
Like down Joseph Howe. So 3 roads or the water. Like you're almost an island, and we're trying to put more people on there. And listening to your council this morning, especially the one there, I was listening to the whole show, the one that wasn't in the studio. That
Kathryn Morse. Kathryn Morse.
For the comment about they don't interfere with traffic, has she driven around the city? Who? I vote. I hope you vote.
Yeah.
I hope a lot of our listeners here vote. I know we don't, because the gentleman who was on right is correct. There's not enough people voting. Is it a true theory that the smartest people in the world, or the smart people, do not run for politics? Because there's a lot of dumb comments from the people that are on your show on Monday. And it seems like they fight with each other. It seems like a boys' club. It seems like there's a group of them in there, Todd, that you either agree with them or they'll make you agree with them.
Yeah.
And was I a fan of Andy Fillmore? I didn't know him. I didn't know. Did I vote for him? No, I didn't know him. I voted another way. But do I agree with him? Yes. Does he have any say? No, and he's trying to. What number is that he got, kicked out to the curb on? Was that his 3rd attempt at something different, and he got voted down? I know there was 2 others.
Yeah, I think this was the second. One was on the
second.
Yeah, the one was on the homeless, on the encampments. That was one. He tried to. I believe the motion was to not allow encampments in HRM. That was the first one. I'm not sure if there was the second or if this was the second, but that one I do know of.
Yeah, and you know what? It's just, I lived here all my life, and I mean, you can fill in the blank. This is getting to be nothing but a blank show. And it really is. It really is, Todd. Like, do you have a crystal ball on your desk that you can look into 5 years and see what it's going to look like around here? And I'm telling you, when all these buildings are full of people, you can build as many roundabouts as you want. It ain't going to solve your problem.
Well, David, that is why some councillors would say why you need to have bike lanes to get rid of all the vehicle or to minimize the vehicles on the roads. What's your response to that?
It's not even. But my response to that is not even about bike lanes. Forget about the bike lanes. There's no bike lanes on Bayers. There's no bike lanes on the Bay High. There is no bike lanes going to the bridges. There is no bike lanes, maybe a few going to the Armdale Rotary. I'm talking about the infrastructure of the roads holding the people while they have a spread of development. The development is, there's nowhere to build on the peninsula. So what do, Todd? They build up. They can't build out anymore, so they build up. They tear down stuff and build something 3 times the size of what they tore down. So I guess when you're designing an infrastructure or designing a development that you want to build, a subdivision or whatever, you got to have some thought. And I don't think, maybe we should take the staff, put them in a Metro Transit bus and drive them around the city and look at the mess they're creating, along with the councillors. Now, here's one last thing. You're putting a development on Park Walk Road. If you look on the map, they're putting units on the Park Walk Road all the way down to the end of Park Walk Road. It goes to about 1,700 before you hit the very end of the lake. They're putting developments down the Park Walk Road. Well, Hammers Plains is already a nightmare. There's no infrastructure. You're still fighting with each other to put a road in there because you had a terrible fire 2 years ago with nowhere to get people out.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying stop building. I'm not saying don't bring people in. We don't need development. What I'm saying is whoever's putting in this mess is turning it into a nightmare because they're popping all these buildings down these streets with no infrastructure, no way to get out. So if you're down the end of Park Walk Road, they're putting in 500 units like townhouses,
Yeah.
and their rental units.
Yeah.
Well, how do you get out of Park Rock Road? You drive to the beginning of Park Rock Road, and you go either way on Hammond's Plains. So I listening to them, they have no knowledge. They have no, and if you're ever up in an airplane and you're landing from a trip and they fly in a nice blue day around Halifax, what a mess. And I think you had a gentleman on years ago who said it's like a spider effect. They just stretch out, and build. And they'll worry about how they're going to get people to a certain, to their work or to a certain destination. Oh, we'll worry about that down the road. Well, final thought here. Look at all the buildings around you, and I said this before. Put everybody in there and put half of the people in there with a car. What kind of mess do you have?
Yeah. There you go. Okay, David, thanks for the call. Good comments.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Thanks for the calls, everybody. We appreciate it. And we'll open the phone lines again tomorrow between 11 and 12. And thanks again for all the calls. A legal expert, Wayne MacKay, says malpractice fight's tough to win when Canadian hospitals get it wrong. Wayne MacKay joins us when we come back. I saw this story on the Global News website last week. A legal expert says suing for medical malpractice can come with a long list of challenges. The comments come after a Nova Scotia woman says she was wrongly told she had terminal breast cancer, just weeks being told she had no traces of the disease. Joining us to talk about all this is Wayne MacKay, law professor emeritus at Dalhousie University. Wayne, thanks as always. We appreciate your insight.
No problem.
All right, so this story, I'll read a bit more of it. Gabriella Patey told Global News that Halifax's IWK Health Centre made several errors when delivering her breast biopsy results. On May 17th, the hospital said her results were all clear. Then 2 weeks later, she was informed she had advanced stage breast cancer, giving her about 10 months to live. But then just days after that, she was told the positive results were sent in error and the terminal diagnosis was meant for someone else. And I can only imagine what type of emotional roller coaster this would be, Wayne. And first and foremost, that needs to be stated, right? The personal toll that this took on this woman.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty hard to imagine something that would be more upsetting and disruptive and awful than that. And to have it kind of happen on such an important matter, to go from everything's fine to you're going to die shortly, that's a pretty big leap to make.
Yeah, for sure. And the hospital has issued an apology. So what does that imply, or how does that play out legally here? Does it have any legal ramifications, an apology?
Well, I think it can perhaps have some marginal legal ramifications if it were to go to court, but I don't think terribly big, in the sense that they've admitted an error, but they haven't admitted negligence, which is we'll talk about in a moment. And the errors do happen even in a good system. This is a pretty big one, but it doesn't certainly decide the issue. It is relevant and would help the case a little bit, I would think.
Okay, so let's drill down into why this is difficult to get a court or rather a judge or whomever to decide that malpractice needs to be addressed here.
Well, I guess that is the key here, and what we'd be talking about as the most likely course of action would be a lawsuit or a civil action for negligence. Not anything criminal, but rather seeking compensation in some way for an error that was made. And not just that an error was made, but an error was made in a way that falls below the reasonable standard of how these things are done. And that's the essence of negligence law, really, is you try to discern what would the reasonable professional person, doctor, health person, lab person in this case, do, and did they take all those kind of steps, or did they do something less than that fell below the proper standards of care? And that's really the core question that would need to be addressed, and that's why just saying there was an error doesn't end the matter. So that's a factual thing. So I don't know whether or not she might at the end of the day have a good case to make, But what I do know from my experience on these things is certainly she has the burden of proving not only that the error occurred, but that it occurred because whoever she may be suing, whether it's a lab person, the hospital, a doctor, or whatever, was acting in a negligent way or below the standard of care, and that caused her injury. Now, no problem with the last point. It was the error that caused her to have the psychological shock that anyone would have facing this kind of decision. So it really all comes down to that factual point. How did they go about doing this? And what's the standard practice? What kinds of steps are normally taken, not just at that particular hospitals, by hospitals generally, with dealing with obviously very important sensitive test results? How many checks and balances are built into the system when they do these kind of things? All of that would be very relevant and therefore would have to be proven, not beyond a reasonable doubt, it's not criminal, but on a balance of probabilities, and the burden of proof is on the person claiming the negligence.
Okay, but the result speaks for itself, does it not? I mean, if protocol were carried out in the way that it has for the vast majority of these types of tests, and clearly this is not common. If it was, we'd be hearing about it, I would think. Then the results kind of speak for themselves that some form of negligence was at play here. Is that not accurate, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think I understand what you're saying clearly, and I think you're right. If this thing this kind of thing was happening regularly, we'd certainly hear about it. And so it's not. I'm sure it's a very unusual, one would certainly hope, very unusual situation. But it doesn't mean that therefore automatically there was negligence. Perhaps there was something a series of very minor things that happened to produce this particular bad result. Not maybe that likely, but it's certainly possible. And that in spite of the fact that everyone may have done exactly what they were supposed to do, in this case, something happened maybe beyond their control that really doesn't amount to negligence. I mean, this is maybe a stupid example, but let's just say as an example that everything was in writing, which it wouldn't be in lots of other forms as well. But let's say it was, and something came along and a wind came through a window that blew it in the wrong stack and it went to the wrong person. That, maybe it was negligent to leave the window open, maybe. But on the other hand, that may have just been a really unfortunate accident that nobody would have anticipated because no wind was pretty. I mean, that's a pretty stupid example, but I guess that's my point, is that there could be things that caused this, at least in part, which was not a result of somebody not meeting their duty. Now, again, to be very clear, I'm not saying that's the case. It may not be at all. I don't know the facts, but I do know that it's a tough burden to prove all the relevant facts beyond a balance of probability to win these kind of cases.
Okay, and is that just the way that the law is written, and is that inherently unfair? Does it favor one group over the other, or is there logic and meaning behind the way that the law is written and potentially interpreted?
I think I have perhaps a law bias in this, but I think there's some logic and reason behind it, because unfortunately bad things do happen even if people are acting appropriately and doing the right things. Hopefully not often, but they do. So I think that's what the law is in part reflecting. And in terms of sort of imbalance on that, I suppose in any case, an organization like a hospital or I think it was the IWK, I can't remember.
Yeah, the IWK,
yeah. Yeah, in this case, has pluses and negatives as far as being sued. They have access to money through taxpayers and others, so you have what's called deep pockets, so no point suing somebody that can't compensate you in any way. But on the other side, because they have some resources, they're going to have, as they should have, good lawyers, presumably, and lawyers that are going to do everything they can on their side. And that's the other challenge that faces anyone engaging in a civil lawsuit. They have to pay the lawyers and pay the whatever's involved in pursuing it, whether or not they win. So in that kind of sense, there's always a bit of an imbalance depending on resources. But I don't think the law itself is unfair on that if given the broad application. This is not just in relation to serious hospital. Any kind of negligence case requires the same kind of standards and proving that they've fallen below that. Now, one area which would help the plaintiff in this case is because it's an important matter of professional health care and professional negligence, the standard is and should be higher. You know, what you would expect from your garbage collector, let's say, and what you'd expect from a brain surgeon are pretty different things in terms of how much attention to detail they might pay. So that helps a bit. So it is, I think, in the end, a pretty balanced kind of system.
Public trust, though, when it comes to getting these types of diagnoses, every single day people get a diagnosis on test results, and dozens and I don't know what the number would be on a daily, weekly basis here in Nova Scotia, but I think that people need to be able to trust what they're being told, and again, I don't want to cast aspersions and suggest this is something that's common, because I don't think it is, because if it were, we'd be hearing about it. But I think it's cause, or at least it will perhaps lead to some people to question these types of results that they hear. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree with you on that, and I'm glad you raised that, because that's a really important point. There's no question that this is a serious thing, and I admire the poor plaintiff who suffered this, thinking about pursuing this to protect others and to make sure we have a system that does the absolute best to provide the correct test to the correct people. No question about that. I think there may be other ways to do that, and actually, fortunately for her, in a way, her initiative here and her unfortunate experience is being used effectively right now. I mean, by getting media attention out there, by making everyone aware of how damaging and how terrible this is, will presumably make the people doing these things even more careful than they were before. Certainly, if I were involved, or most any fair person were involved in this, and you have a terrible situation like this, you're going to make extra efforts to be absolutely certain. And whether or not there's any lawsuit, I would hope and expect that the IWK would review what is our process for doing this. What is that? What steps are we taking? Can we identify where this went wrong? You know, was it something fluky, or was it something problematic, and address as quickly as possible any errors or any lack of attention to detail. So I would hope all of that's going to happen, whether or not there's a successful negligence case.
Yeah, and I suppose no system's perfect, right? Not to make excuses for anybody or anything, but I expecting perfection and to never get it wrong perhaps is unrealistic. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you put that better than I just answered your question on that in a way. That is really the point. No system is perfect. No person, however high their standards and however professional they may be, are perfect. So we can't expect perfection. What we can and have a right to expect is that they deliver to a very high standard of care and a very high standard of attention. And if that's being done, there still may be the occasional error that will occur. And I think that is really the main answer in a way to your question, why is the system set up this way? They're recognizing that even if nobody's doing anything really wrong, sometimes bad things happen.
Okay, Wayne, always great. Appreciate your insight.
No problem.
All right, take care. Wayne MacKay, Law Professor Emeritus, Dalhousie University. The Doctors Nova Scotia has a new president. We'll chat with the president when we come back. All right, Doctors Nova Scotia has a new president. Dr. Shelly McNeil joins us to talk about all this. Dr. McNeil, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon.
All right, so let's talk a bit about your background. I guess first of all, let everybody know a bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I was born in Nova Scotia, and my dad was in the military, so spent some time traveling across the country following my dad. But came back, went to Acadia, and went to Dalhousie Medicine. Graduated back in '94, so I've been out for a while, and I've been an infectious disease specialist since 2000 here in Halifax.
Okay, what is it about this role that motivated you to want to take it on?
Well, it's an exciting time in healthcare. As you know, we've seen lots of great initiatives coming forward and lots of initiative in the healthcare system. It's really been a big time of transformation and change for all of us as specialists and family docs. So having spent 25 years in the system now, I thought it would be a nice time to sort of step up and help Doctors Nova Scotia realize the vision of sort of primary care stabilization and making sure that all Nova Scotians have a family doc to quarterback their care. So I'm excited about to work with doctors across the province and with government partners and the health authorities to keep moving in the right direction, as I think we have been over the last several years.
All right. So tell us about Doctors Nova Scotia and its role in all of this.
So Doctors Nova Scotia represents all of the doctors in Nova Scotia, of course, and our primary role is to represent physicians and their jobs and roles in the healthcare system more broadly. So we can aim to be good partners to government and to health authorities and to support our members in moving initiatives forward that really optimize the role of physicians in the delivery of healthcare to Nova Scotians. Again, we think it's really critical that every Nova Scotian has a family doctor to quarterback their care. We recognize all the great initiatives that have come into play over the last while to support unattached patients. While we don't have enough family docs for everyone to have one, but we'd love to see a coordinated approach that takes that siloed care that we might be getting with some of the new initiatives and builds a sort of a comprehensive plan so that all of a patient's care is coordinated, and that the family doc would be, I think the family doc would be the best position to sort of lead that. So we'd love to see physician-led primary care teams, for example, where patients all have access to a primary care team that includes a family doc and other providers that can meet their needs, moving forward. So we'd love to continue to work with government and the health authority partners. We'd love to see a primary care action team, for example, that could bring all of the different primary care providers and stakeholders together to develop a system of primary care in the province that would be top-notch, team-based, physician-led teams caring for patients with every patient having access. And it would really make Nova Scotia a province where family docs from across the country would want to come and practice if we can get there.
Okay, you say if we can get there. What are the impediments? What's standing in the way of it not happening?
Well, I think there's lots of competition, of course, for family doctors across the country. So we need to ensure that this is a place that not only family docs are remunerated fairly and competitively, but also that the environment is such that family docs want to come and work here. Nova Scotia has been working hard and leading across the country in minimizing unnecessary administrative burden for docs. So that's a really important thing to encourage people to practice and optimize how much good patient care they can be delivering. And last year alone, Nova Scotia eliminated over 400,000 hours of unnecessary administrative burden for family docs, allowing them to, focus on patient care. So things like that, and again, moving and continuing to move toward family doctor-led primary care teams and health homes, I think will make this continue to make Nova Scotia a place where people want to come and work.
Okay, and when it comes to politics and the politics behind healthcare, what are your thoughts on that? And I suppose when all is said and done, everybody just wants a better healthcare system, regardless of political stripe. What are your thoughts on politics and all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we all have a shared vision. I think everybody wants the best care possible for all Nova Scotians, and I think this government and Doctors Nova Scotia and the health authorities have all been working hard, and I think in pretty good partnership to try to get there. So I think we've seen a lot of positive relationship building between government and all of us in Doctors Nova Scotia and the health authorities. So I'm optimistic. I think we're in an exciting time of change, and I think as the president of Doctors Nova Scotia, I would just hope that we continue to recognize that physicians' voices need to be there. They need to be strong. They need to be leaders in this transformation. And I think we're working hard to ensure that our voices are heard and that we're at the table helping to shape the system in the way that best serves Nova Scotians moving forward.
Okay, Dr. McNeil, congratulations on the appointment, and we'll talk many times, I'm sure, over the next year. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.
All right, take care. Shelly McNeil, new president of Doctors Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia's government is streamlining the approval process for potential metal mining projects after they go through an environmental assessment. We'll chat with Sean Kirby about all of this and more when we come back. All right, joining us is Sean Kirby, Executive Director of the Mining Association of Nova Scotia. Sean, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time, of course.
Thanks very much, Todd.
All right, so a couple of things I want to get to. First off, I want to talk about the news last week. No takers for Nova Scotia's request for interested companies to submit proposals for uranium mining exploration. The provincial government added uranium to its list of priority critical minerals May 14th and issued a request for exploration proposals for 3 sites with known deposits of the heavy metal. But the Premier confirmed no companies came forward with a bid. So what was your response to that, first of all?
Yeah, look, it was, I think, important to test the waters because we only just repealed the uranium ban a couple of months ago. So it was important to test the waters and see what the global mining industry's reaction was. Unfortunately, there were no submissions to the RFPs, but I think what that really tells us is that when you ban something for almost a half century, it takes more time and additional policy changes in order to attract interest in our potential for uranium. And so this was an initial first step. We, support the government having tried it, but what it really tells us is that the government needs to make additional policy changes, like fixing the permitting system in Nova Scotia to demonstrate to the global mining industry that Nova Scotia is in fact open for business, that we want the jobs and investment that mining can bring, and to have people come here and do the exploration necessary to help us understand whether we in fact have economically viable uranium deposits so that we can contribute to the global effort to try to achieve climate goals, because uranium is essential to climate goals because it helps fuel emissions-free nuclear power, and countries around the world, including Canada, are looking to triple nuclear generation as part of achieving goals like net zero. So hopefully Nova Scotia can contribute to that. We are really just dipping a toe into the waters after almost a half century of banning uranium, but clearly we have a lot of additional policy work to do to build trust and attract investment in our potential.
Would the uranium, those stakeholders, they would know the landscape, though, would they not, when it comes to uranium, and if there is a need, and if I guess from a business model, if it made sense, would that not motivate somebody to at least have a look?
Well, I think it does, and it will. But the reality is, we nipped in the bud uranium exploration in this province almost a half century ago, and so our knowledge of our uranium deposits is really very limited. And what we know about it, the data we have was gathered with the science and technology of the day back in the late 70s and early 80s. So we really have very limited knowledge of our uranium potential, and we do need to attract companies here to do the exploration to help us understand with the modern science and technology what our potential for uranium is. But clearly we need to do more to attract that interest. I mean, there are other places in the world people can go looking for uranium that have proven to be, consistently supportive jurisdictions. Nova Scotia had a ban in place for almost a half century, and that does a lot of harm to our reputation as a jurisdiction in which to invest. So we need to do more to undo that harm. Repealing the uranium ban was a really important first step. We applaud the government for doing that. But the government really needs to see that as just a first step and to do important policy changes like fixing permitting so that we continue to demonstrate that Nova Scotia wants the job creation and the investment that comes from having the global mining industry come here and do mineral exploration and development.
Okay, what needs to be done to fix permitting? What are the issues with permitting?
Yeah, the permitting in our industry is extremely complex, and it should be. We're a very, complicated science-based industry, but it's absolutely essential, of course, to protect the environment and worker safety and all those values that are so important to all of us. But the big challenge in Nova Scotia is that we have, we are widely seen as having the worst permitting system in Canada. Every other province has one department, a Department of Mines, in charge of their permitting system, which gives them mostly a one-stop shopping for permitting, which, has a center of excellence of geologists and mining engineers and environmental experts, et cetera, who regulate the industry and make it efficient and effective so that you can both take advantage of your economic opportunities while also, of course, taking care of the environment. In Nova Scotia, we don't have that. We have a wide range of departments involved in permitting. No one department is involved. The strangest aspect of it really is that most of the provincial government's experts in mining and minerals are in the Department of Natural Resources Mines branch, but they have almost no role in permitting us. The experts that the government employs to, in our sector have almost no role or authority in permitting the sector. It just makes no sense. So we really need to restructure Nova Scotia's permitting system, create a Department of Mines or one department in charge that really brings together all the various experts that are needed within government to efficiently and effectively regulate the industry to ensure we can take advantage of our economic opportunities while, of course, protecting the environment and holding the industry to the highest environmental standards.
Okay, on Friday, the Environment Minister, Timothy Hallman, announced changes to the industrial approval process. He told a news conference in Halifax that his government's new phased approach allows applicants to submit some details about their plans after their projects have been approved. For example, a company will be able to submit erosion and other control plans after its project's approval, but before construction on the mine begins. So is this a step in the right direction? What are your thoughts on this?
Anything that helps cut red tape and make permitting more efficient is something that we support, so we appreciate the government's announcement. At the same time, it's not the fundamental change that is required, which is really the restructuring of the system so that it can be more efficient and effective and allow us to both take advantage of our economic opportunities while also, of course, properly taking care of the environment. So, we see this as a step in the right direction, but it's not really the change that's ultimately needed. Any improvements the government makes in the meantime, as we work towards restructuring the system, we're happy to see. And so we applaud the announcement, at least to that extent. But again, we really need to restructure the system, have a permitting system that is structured the way every other province in the country does it. Everybody else has a better reputation for their permitting system than Nova Scotia does. So clearly they're on to something and we've missed the boat on it. We need to fix the deficiencies in our system and restructure it with one department in charge so that we can efficiently and effectively regulate the industry.
Okay, so when it comes to public outcry or backlash or lobby groups or whatever it might be, do you think industry takes note of that? Do they monitor media? Might this be a factor? What are your thoughts?
Look, Nova Scotia is a fantastic place. It's been a mining jurisdiction for centuries. We have a really important industry here that employs about 3,000 Nova Scotians, mostly in rural areas. We're the highest paying resource industry in the province with average total compensation of about $102,000 per year. But we do need to, we do have the potential to do more, to create more jobs for Nova Scotians, to contribute more to government revenues that help pay for programs like health and education. So as an industry, our focus is on trying to offer scientific, fact-based educational information about our industry so people can understand how we work, how we take care of things like the environment and worker safety, and why we matter in terms of contributing to everything in our daily lives. So we need to keep doing that. Obviously, the more of that we do, the more we can do to help build our social license, the easier it becomes to attract interest and investment in our mineral potential. So that's our focus. We really need to keep working with Nova Scotians and sharing factual information that helps them understand that modern mining is a sophisticated, high-tech, science-based business that takes excellent care of the environment.
How has modern mining changed? Tell us about some of the evolutions that might quell people's concerns here.
Well, it's changed in every way from what it was historically. I mean, one of the sort of, most obvious and easiest ways to understand that is that we all have, seen the pictures of, coal miners with soot-covered faces and pickaxes. And obviously, pickaxes are a thing of the past. They're from generations ago. We use heavy equipment these days. We have very sophisticated modern science and technology that allow us to be much more efficient in how we operate, that allow us to be much safer. We have reduced our injury rate in our industry by 90% since the Westray public inquiry. That's 90%. We have, tremendous science and sophistication in how we take care of the environment to ensure that we don't make the mistakes of the past. I mean, the industry is not your grandfather's mining industry. It's completely different from what it was historically. And, we've had such a long history of mining in Nova Scotia. And on the one hand, that's wonderful. It's a big part of the reason why Nova Scotia is the province that it is today. But at the same time, it leaves us with a lot of, misconceptions about the industry that we need to try to overcome. The industry is completely different from what it was historically. It's a sophisticated, modern, high-tech, science-based industry that takes fantastic care of the environment.
Sean, are you surprised that there is the pushback that there is from community groups? I mean, it's out there, right? And I'm sure you monitor it all and you recognize that it's out there. What are your thoughts on this pushback from community groups in Hants County and the other areas in which they're looking at here?
So I think I think you're asking really about uranium specifically, and there are, of course, a lot of misconceptions about uranium. But we have to appreciate that they are misconceptions, that we need to make decisions in this province based on science and facts, not myths and misconceptions. The reality is that there was never any safety, health, or environmental reason to have the uranium ban. Experts around the world agree on that. Saskatchewan has been one of the top global suppliers of uranium going back to the 1950s. And in Saskatchewan, 83% of people in that province support the industry because they know that it's safe and environmentally responsible. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission is the federal regulator of uranium mines, and it says unequivocally that uranium mining is safe and environmentally responsible. So we totally understand that people have questions. That's perfectly fair and reasonable, and it's on us to provide factual, science-based information to respond to those questions. But the reality is that, the experience in Canada goes back many, many decades. This is a safe and environmentally responsible sector, and experts around the world agree that uranium mining is perfectly safe and at the same time essential. Most experts around the world agree that nuclear-fueled nuclear power is essential to achieving climate goals because it provides vast quantities of electricity without generating any emissions. And so in order to help achieve climate goals, the world needs to mine a lot more uranium. And if Nova Scotia can help contribute to that while creating jobs for Nova Scotians and more revenues for government to help pay for programs like health and education, that would be a fantastic thing.
Right, just quickly on this one, the comparison between Nova Scotians and other jurisdictions like Saskatchewan, proximity to communities, local communities, and mining operations, is that a concern, or what are your thoughts for those who have that concern?
So the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission has an excellent page on its website called Mythbusters, and if you Google that, you'll find it very easily. And it addresses all kinds of questions about uranium mining just like that. So, for example, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission says that uranium miners in Saskatchewan and people who live in the communities near the province's uranium mines are just as healthy as the general population. In other words, there is no health or safety impact from uranium mining in that province, and it just isn't a legitimate concern. I understand that it's a question people have, and again, we're just doing what we can to try to provide factual information about that. But the information really isn't from us. It's from the global. It's from experts. It's from Canada's regulator, like the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. It says that, proximity to communities is not an issue. And so I think it's important that people understand there is tons and tons of good, solid information out there from experts, from independent third parties like the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, that addresses these concerns and explains that they really are misconceptions. They're not legitimate concerns, and we really need to base decisions in this province on science and facts so that we can move forward, build a stronger province, and become more self-reliant.
Okay, Sean, appreciate it as always. Thanks. We'll talk again.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Sean Kirby, Executive Director, Mining Association of Nova Scotia. When we come back, a couple of things. First of all, we're going to give away a pair of tickets to a great event coming up at the Rebecca Cohen Golden Girls. The laughs continue, so listen for your cue to call if you want to get a pair of tickets. We're going to do that all week, by the way. And also, a newly released report estimates Canada will need at least $30 billion in new capital investments by 2040 if it wants to meet domestic demand for the critical minerals key to a green economy transition. That when we come back. All right, before I chat with my next guest, we're going to give away a set of tickets, pair of tickets. We're going to do this all week, by the way, one pair of tickets a day. Murray and Peter presents Golden Girls, The Last Continue, Rebecca Cohen, September 26th to the 28th. Tickets, of course, on sale now. But if you would like to get a pair of tickets and you'd like to win, give us a call. Be caller 4 now at 902-405-6000. Again, caller 4 gets a pair of tickets, 902-405-6000. All right, joining us now is Marisa Beck, Canadian Climate Institute Clean Growth Research Director. Marisa, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate it.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I read an interesting story. A newly released report estimates Canada will need at least $30 billion in new capital investments by 2040 if it wants to meet domestic demand for the critical minerals key to a green economy transition. First of all, tell us what these minerals are.
Sure. So, in our analysis, we looked at Canada's 6 priority critical minerals, which are copper, cobalt, graphite, nickel, lithium, and rare earth elements. And these elements form the building blocks for many, as you said it in your intro, many of the clean energy technologies that the world will need a lot more of as we're moving through the global clean energy transition. So some of these technologies are solar panels, electric vehicle motors, charging stations for electric vehicles, and of course batteries. And as you said, Canada has ample and mostly unused reserves of these minerals. So they do represent a multi-billion-dollar economic opportunity for the country.
Okay, what concerns or do you have any concerns about this?
Well, what we were looking at is, so you mentioned the need for investment in the sector. Mm-hmm. So although there are these large economic opportunities, because we really see demand for these materials rising, both from within Canada, so mostly from our emerging battery manufacturing industry, but also globally. Governments and economies around the world are looking to build their supply chains, so to purchase the critical minerals that they need to develop these technologies. So demand is rising. There are huge economic opportunities, but we're not really seeing a lot of not enough investment flowing into the sector, not at the kind of pace that you would expect. And so what we've identified is why is that, and what can governments do to attract those $30 billion of investment over the next 15 years? We've really found that there are multiple factors that can slow down investment in critical mineral mining, and we've come up with a policy package that Canadian governments can implement to attract investment and to get these projects off the ground.
All right, so tell us about some of the findings then.
Sure. So first of all, what we found is that despite these big economic opportunities, there's also some significant financial risks related to these projects, and a lot of them are related to high price volatility in global markets. So the global markets for some of these critical minerals right now is really dominated by a few very powerful players. And so their market actions can drive prices up and down in quite a surprising and unpredictable manner. And that's tough for investors, right, who need to form clear expectations of future prices to make sure they're, building profitable projects. So there's a point here where Canadian governments can step in and share some of these financial risks to then encourage investment in the sector. That was one of our policy recommendations. Another one focus is really on the participation and support and consent of Indigenous communities for these projects, because the vast majority of Canadian critical mineral reserves are located on Indigenous lands. And so developing these projects in partnership with the Indigenous communities and nations is a key success factor. So that was the second recommendation. Government can really provide more funding to Indigenous communities to help them, to enable them to participate and partner on these mining projects. And then a third factor that we looked at is some of these mining projects have really quite significant environmental risks for the local communities. So mining is quite a impactful industry, let's say. And so we're arguing that governments should strengthen regulations for mining projects to make sure that the risks for local communities, but also the liabilities, should there be an environmental incident, are really minimized. And that will help build public confidence in the sector and in these projects. That was the third one. And the last one, I'm going to go through all of them now, is you hear a lot in the news, I think, about, speeding up project development. So getting these projects built faster, getting the resources to market faster. And so we're saying, yes, these project developments should be accelerated. However, not at the cost, not at the expense of protecting the environment and ensuring that there's meaningful consultation and participation of Indigenous communities.
Okay, so that's a lot of information for sure. So I guess fundamentally, are you optimistic that eventually this investment will step up and we'll get this investment in Canada?
Yeah, good question. I think so. I think Canadian governments have really shown a lot of urgency recently in developing these projects and accelerating project development. And so I think the sense of urgency is there, the willingness to act is there. So I'm optimistic. But again, these policies need to be developed with the environment and the participation of Indigenous communities in mind. But yes, overall, optimistic.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Todd.
All right,
Bye.
Take care. That's Marisa Beck, Canadian Climate Institute Clean Growth Research Director. And interesting chat for sure. And look, there's a lot of talk about this, about critical minerals. And of course, Donald Trump is keenly eyeing Canada and its minerals and potential what it can do for the United States. And this is going to be a hot topic, folks, moving forward for sure. Absolutely it is. And we'll continue to talk about it. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate it very much. And thanks to Vanessa Van Ness as well on the other side of the glass. The control board's doing a fine job, as always. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.